Welcome to Neurotypical's Don't Juggle Chainsaws, the podcast that cuts through the rubbish to explore the world of neurodiversity. I'm your host, Nic King.
And I'm your host, Kate Fox. And together we're here to explore, understand, and celebrate being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world. From ADHD and autism to dyslexia and other quirky brains, we talk about it all.
And go off on tangents. So whether you're neurodivergent, love someone who is, or you're just curious about neurodivergent minds, you are in the right place.
Let's get ready to juggle some words and maybe even a few chainsaws, metaphorically, of course.
Hello, welcome back to Neurotypical's Don't Juggle Chainsaws. Almost said juggle there. We could have a juggling episode. It is Christmas.
I do still struggle to say juggle, and I'm more likely to say juggle, to be honest. It is quite a difficult sentence. It's got a lot of consonants in. Anyway, yes, welcome to that. She's Nic King. I'm Kate Fox. It's Christmas Day. Do you think, really, that we are recording this on Christmas Day, like Jules Holland is really recording the Hootenanny on New Year's Day?
I believe the Hootenanny's recorded in September. It isn't September for full disclosure, but it is still November just.
It is. But you're listening to this. I presume you're not listening to this on Christmas Day, to be fair. Well, some people will be, won't they?
Maybe they want to spend Christmas Day with us.
Well, quite rightly. Well, yes. Do you know, well, slightly I digress, because what we're going to do is basically a Christmas carol, but imagining a future in which there is not an autistic-friendly future. We'll get into that in a minute. But something I've been doing this month is running mindful sessions. I've used the word mindful, even though it's a bit misused, for neurodivergent people online, basically so that we can recover from or just gather in space together at this stressful time of year. And I think people are really appreciating that this is a possibility.
Never know. Everyone might be hiding from friends, family, loved ones, Christmas occasions in the bathroom with we're playing through their ears.
Exactly. Yeah, because there is that need, isn't there, for escape.
But anyway, we're going to offer a bit of escapism.
We are.
We've had a very random idea at the very last minute, and we're going to go with it.
Go on, Nic. It was in fact your idea. I will now dissociate myself from it completely.
Tell us unless it's really good, and then you might get back on board at the end.
Yeah.
So we are going to do. So not only have I recently seen a version of the Christmas Carol, which was a Play Goes Wrong version of the Christmas Carol, but because I have also been deep cleaning the teenager's bedroom, I remembered that way back when, which was 2020, so Zed would have been 11-ish at the time, Zed wrote a version of the Christmas Carol that had an imagining of sort of 3 ghosts that were autistic, and they were going to go and change somebody's ways. So I'm going to read you the first part because it's 2,500 words. They put effort in. There was effort made.
In that, and for a 10-year-old to write 2,500 words, flipping heck. That's unusual, actually.
It's not bad, because I did message them to ask their permission before we recorded. And they were like, yeah, fine. I can't even particularly remember it. And I'm reading through it. I'm like, do you know what? It wasn't bad. Especially considering it really wasn't bad. Okay, so I'm going to start, and then we'll go off tangent a little bit. So Zed was autistic to begin with. There was no doubt whatsoever about it. Their diagnosis letter was signed by the doctors. The story I'm about to tell you would not make sense without this very fact. You will therefore permit me to repeat emphatically that Zed was autistic to begin with. So we're sort of at Scrooge's office, and we have Bob. He was always the hero and the protagonist, really. And we have a mean boss in Scrooge and Bob, and they went into the office for a meeting. And he was a kind soul, Bob, unlike his boss. He wanted to help others. Sir? Asked Bob in a quiet voice. What? said Scrooge in a low growl. Well, I was thinking, Bob stuttered, why don't we employ autistic people? Ah, we're all a little bit autistic, said Scrooge. And then we went home and we have ghosts. Now, in Zed's imagining of ghosts, there was the ghost of Christmas past, where they were thinking about sort of treatment bases, ABA therapy being mandatory, sort of, I don't know, like control over small people at school. And maybe that was wrong with Scrooge. Maybe he had a traumatic childhood.
Oh, yes. Well, maybe, and maybe also in the imagined but not that imagined past, it was a time where extreme male brain theory ruled. Imagine, and all the people who didn't display the traits of this entirely imagined evolutionary thing had to completely pretend that they were totally usual in their ways of socializing and being.
And then I
Imagine.
think, I mean, what we're talking? We're talking Victorian age for Charles Dickens, aren't we? So
Ooh,
you were either eccentric or you were in an institution, depending on your level of maleness and or money.
absolutely. Yeah, and the institution might be sort of quite literally locked away in an institution, or possibly, see, I think a lot of neurodivergent people would have been in the workhouse, actually, for various reasons. I suppose at least you didn't. I'm kind of thinking of ADHD people at this moment, right? Did At least there was a lot less admin in Victorian times, wasn't there, though? Like, you can't, I mean, my terrible nemesis of, oh, don't even, oh, my whole driving and car related admin disaster, like, that wouldn't have happened to me in Victorian times. But if it had, I would have ended up in the workhouse, perversely. And hopefully, um, there might have been more amenable work available, sort of thing, on the positive side.
Maybe. What kind of work would you be doing though?
Well, that's the thing. Presuming that I was somewhat low born, uh, well, Jane Eyre for me would be my model of what would have ended up happening, where it would have been a very unhappy governess because it would still have had the words thing. So at least I would have kind of the education level. I'd probably have taught myself to read, then it would have been a governess, but I would have hated having to, oh, the masking necessary to live in a house with employers with money would have been very traumatic. So it would obviously have been better to then fall in love with the master of the house, despite his, unfortunately, ex-wife up in the attic, and run off with him eventually after the house had burned down. I think it would have been my best option, to be honest.
I feel like you'd thought about that slightly more than you're letting on.
I totally have. I mean, I genuinely have like thought about. Isn't this a thing? This will be a thing for lots of us. Like thinking about if you were you with your neurodivergence in various eras of history, how would you have fared, sort of thing.
I think with my mouth and the ability to say whatever came through my head, I would have mainly just been in institutions, depending on how much money I had, how pleasant that experience might have been. Either really bad institutions or the sort of okay ones. I
What?
don't. I would have had a bloomin' wandering room and female hysteria. I would have.
Oh no, because you're emotionally quite. Oh, but again, it's all. Oh, this is definitely digging deep into alternative pasts. But I was going to say you're emotionally quite well regulated, which would have been helpful, re
But
the
far
institution.
too opinionated for somebody with a, womb.
Well, do you know what your best option would have been in Victorian times, actually? So assuming we're in this country, other countries are available, some sort of church thing, like a preacher, a Methodist or something, who could kind of speak out.
I'll take cult leader. It's fine. Ah,
Well, yes, have your own colour. Well, there were quite a lot of. That's why I like the Quakers, because I think, oh, Quakers. They used to. You could just sort of wander about the countryside, going to Quaker meetings outside, speak out. Is encouraged to speak out. A lot of equality for women. Um, I think that, and being a nun, of course, would have been another excellent option for those of us who are, again, you could run your own abbey or something like that, or be.
Ooh, I'll run my own abbey. I'll take
Yeah. Well, so the only, people like Saint Hilda, among the very few people who actually had power back in the day and kind of make your own rules. A lot of people there would have obviously enjoyed the routine, but then there was scope for people to have more flexible
I am
ways of.
very organised and very good at planning. We would never
Yeah,
have starved.
you'd have been a brilliant abbess, actually.
There you go.
Hmm.
So we're
Okay.
sorted, kind of.
Okay. That's
So
the past. Oh, hang on. Is
Christmas
that
past.
off-putting? So has Scrooge seen that? No, because that's his actual past. I'm going to get a bit confused now with the imaginary element. Are we showing Scrooge the because doesn't the imagined? No, it's his real past. Is it? What happens in?
In Christmas Carol, it's his real past.
Oh, okay.
He go back to his school and discuss his childhood trauma.
Ah.
But we don't need to
Oh.
do that today. I feel like we've had enough childhood trauma on this pod.
Oh, okay. Fair, fair. Okay, right.
Okay,
So
so
now the ghost of Christmas present.
I'm gonna read another sad bit because bless
Oh,
them,
okay.
10. We're doing this. Okay, right, you ready?
Mm.
The bell rung 1 o'clock. It had a deathly cold whisper to it, the kind that sends shivers down your spine and pins you to the sheets. Daring not to move, Scrooge waited and waited. Silence. Nothing. Nothing moved. Silence. Suddenly, a blinding light filled the room, and there was the ghost of Christmas present. So there you go. Bless 11-year-old said.
That's good writing. Come on, I'm going to read the next bit. It's a really good descriptive bit here. Its head was a burning flame, his face visible from within. His thin body was like wax, yet it flowed like it was made of cotton, white and featureless. It had human arms and held an extinguisher cap in its arms. It had no legs. Instead, it floated in midair.
I say? Nah.
Ooh, okay.
Right. So,
Yeah.
present.
Oh.
Long diagnosis waits. I have to say, there's a diagnosis wait thing in this script a little bit further on, and it says 6 months. That's very 2020, isn't it? That was 5 years ago, people. That was when it was
Halcyon
bad
days.
5 years ago.
Those were the days.
Back in
Those
the
were the
good old
days.
days.
Yeah. What is it now? Quite literally
Oh,
years.
like 3 years-ish for kids. Longer if you're an adult. If you're an
Much
adult,
longer
you
for
don't really
adults.
need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Goodness me. Okay. So then what's being shown? Oh yeah. So although we've had that vivid description of the ghost of ableist present, I wonder if that ghost now would be RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., maybe reading poetry to Scrooge about how he can't possibly read poetry if he's autistic or write poetry. It's apparently I just saw the headline and I couldn't bear to go further into this. Apparently RFK has just written some erotic love poetry for some reason and it was in the
Oh, do not Google that, people.
yeah,
Don't do
exactly.
it yourself.
We don't need to know that on this Christmas day. Anyway, yes, and he takes you to an autism parent's house. And they are blogging about helpful things that you can do as an autism parent. For example, you can give your child ABA and you can make them sit under fluorescent lights because it'll be good for them. They'll eventually get used to it. Yeah.
I have to say it further on in this script, however much, 5 years ago, we've got in this imagined situation, there's a child here that they're observing. However, there's the reason that she's so quiet and emotionless is that her mum's cold like a refrigerator. I like that they did the research at 10. And then as well, and again, this is something that, we thought we'd put to bed. And it says a quick flash on the TV studio, a doctor named Andrew Wakefield was being interviewed. And it says the results of my research show the MMR vaccine causes autism. And then, that children did not take the vaccine and it caused actual death. And Scrooge they saw this horror and cried, "Show me no more." But we're back in the circle, aren't we? We're back in a paracetamol circle. We're back in the vaccine circle.
We hope you're enjoying our discussions. If you would like to show your support, you can pop over to neurotypicalsdon'tjugglechainsaws.co.uk and leave us a little tip through the PayPal link, and that helps us to continue to bring you great content.
There was a Instagram story that the theme of this is me skipping over news stories because I don't really want to read them. But the writer, Suzanne, her surname's gone, mercifully, begins with S. She's doing the rounds at the moment. She was at the Hay Literature Festival anyway, talking about how just everyone's being labelled now. I mean, everyone's being labelled and it doesn't mean anything anymore. Oh, thanks for that, Suzanne. And it was an actual video clip on the Hay Festival website. And bear in mind, it felt to me quite casual that a literature festival, which would not casually promote, one would hope, overtly racist ideas, was promoting overtly ableist ideas with no consequence, really. Although some people were a bit miffed on the comments, basically.
You see the MP, the Reform one, who talked about children wearing ear defenders in class being insane in quote marks. I was like,
Oof. Oh, we've got to move on to the. Hang on, it's going to get worse, isn't it? Because we're going to move on to the imagined future. Don't worry, everyone. There is a hopeful ending to this because we're going to discover the. Hopefully, I mean, this would convert me. If I was Scrooge, I'd be like, "This is terrible. This cannot happen.
we need to change. To be fair, in Zed's imagining, there is a hopeful end, realistically, mainly centering Zed in a very sort of in a very Zed kind of way. But we've got there we go. So Scrooge fell to the ground, a deathly air around the figure, yet one to hope for the better future. It was dressed in a sparkly black hood and a robe, and he could sense power and time mingling within the cloak.
Lovely line. Could sense power and time mingling within the. I like that. The 10 at this point. Bear in mind. Very good.
Two grown adult women stealing the 10-year-old's work. We didn't steal, I did ask. Heavily cited. So yes, this is apparently in Zed's imagining the spirit of advocacy future, where they are centering like autistic advocates. We are centering, listening to the autistic community. We are centering sort of spreading. It says spreading actual facts.
Actual facts.
Actual facts. Actual facts. Scrooge employed autistic people. He listened and he made sure the world would know how to accommodate everyone's needs, and he became a true advocate.
This is good because
In the
otherwise,
spirit of neurodivergence.
we could have the ghost of inaccessible future, where imagine there could be AI that has been trained only on neurotypical data, and everything is designed without consulting actual neurodivergent people. Even worse sensory environments, mandatory video calls forever. Stimming has been pathologized out of existence. That could happen. Do you know who suggested that? Claude, my favourite AI. So we'll be fine because Claude understands about neurodiversity.
Claude is always right.
Claude is always right. Absolutely. I mean,
it does feel a bit cuspy at the minute. I really feel that. I know a lot of people who do a lot of advocacy as their main employment who are really, really struggling. and financially, because, you know, a lot of people don't see monetary value in that. But everyone has to feed themselves, their family, turn electricity on, you know, run a website, stuff like that. And that's not free. It costs money. And then, you know, people need to live. And I think there is a little bit of a cusp where I see a lot of charities going under. I know a lot of advocates that are struggling. Some of them are shutting down. Some of them are going into employment, which obviously means they are then under the control of an employer and can't just do what they think they want to do and what they align with. And I do think we're on a little bit of a cusp of an interesting future where if the advocates that are knowledgeable and free to advocate in their own way, and then we look at it, political climate change where we're talking about overdiagnosis and children wearing ear defenders being insane, how are we going to not just end up following that narrative if we don't have the backing of our community, and if as a community we can't afford to subsidize that aspect of our community and pay them, because cost of living is a very real thing. And I've got a bit of a strange sort of imagined future where I felt, you know, when like 2020 happened and everyone went online, and I feel it was a massive, you know, sharing of messages, massive changes, and there was a big turn there as well, as opposed to the 5 years before. And now, sort of 5 years after that, I feel like we're sitting on the cusp of another turn that I don't feel that. I don't want to sit here and be really negative about it, but I think we should be talking about it a bit more. Maybe we should be a bit more concerned about it.
Okay, yes. And in certain ways, I feel hopeful about some elements of this cusp. And I want to talk about that, but you're absolutely right. If we're not really talking about that, the danger of things getting worse and the difficulties for advocates, then we're not going to be as motivated to do the things we need to do. And basically, the things that who is the we? People who recognise the importance of genuinely neurodivergent affirming ways of being and practices, whether that is the complete normalising of ear defenders in the classroom and anywhere else that people need them, and suitable sensory environments, and a recognition that different people have different ways of being and learning and existing in the world. A recognition of the importance of those things, right? Either like that's not going to go away because more and more people are recognizing the importance of those things, because more and more people are actually getting diagnoses, and more people in places that are influential in the media, in academia, they're getting diagnoses and they're talking about it and they're advocating. So the advocacy is spreading. A tipping point was at some point reached, I would say, and that's not going to go away. But either that will be a widely held way of being that nonetheless isn't exactly supported by governments and businesses in the same way it should be, or it actually, presuming we somehow move past the increasingly fascistic direction of society, then it will be more mainstreamed and supported. But either way, it will be a very significant, what's the word? What do I want to say? I want to say a counter public. What I mean by a counter public is, so essentially you have the public, and then you have a kind of a counterculture underneath that. We can be neurodivergent advocates and those who follow us. We can be a significant counter public, and possibly we might be the public. Does that make sense? We're not. I don't think we're just going.
I don't think we're going to be like essentially silenced and go away.
No.
But I do think so, as an example, right? I went into a company that is an international multi-million-pound company because they put together a sensory bag. And I looked at this sensory bag and I literally sat down and went, who on earth did your consultancy about this? Like, and I don't actually have the answer to that because it was one aspect of a multi-million-pound company. But I literally looked at it and I was like, who did you ask? Like, who told you to do this? And if the answers, I went on to like Chat GPT and asked them, like that would possibly have made a bit of sense, even if they hadn't just used a bit of logic. And I think is the large amount of advocacy that we have, I don't know, is it helpful? Is it enabling tokenism? Is everybody telling large organizations that they shouldn't use with autism actually fundamentally changing how accessible or knowledgeable that company is? Or did they just remove some words to appear to be inclusive on the surface? And then when like you actually sort of even slightly pick at that surface, that it all goes a bit wrong quite quickly.
Yes, yes, I hear what you're saying. And actually, the increase in diagnosis, in fact, could encourage that, because what you've then got is not really people coming through who have been among very neuro-affirming advocates in these niches that I feel lucky that I discovered at the time when Twitter was still a thing, and the hashtag actually autistic, and going to conferences and find people. I mean, for me, a big green flag would be that someone talks about monotropism, the kind of theory of autism that's most popular among autistic people who know what they're talking about. A green flag will be talking about the double empathy problem. But you're right, this neurodiversity-lite discourse is dangerous.
And I think I often sit and compare sort of like the LGBT community with our community, because I think it's a very, very good comparison in that homosexuality used to be in the DSM up until 1970. And I think in terms of advocacy and community and there's a plenty basis for comparison, although obviously it's different. And I think, there's a phrase in the gay community where we talk about baby gays, and I do think there's a lot of baby autistics about who get highly platformed very quickly because they happen to be famous. And that's on one hand, yeah, lush, but on the other hand, oh, there's depth.
Yes, yes. Ugh.
There's depth.
And and then I come back to it makes it's oh no, I don't. It makes, for those of us who are speaking about something that's a more radical paradigm shift, a more radically different way of looking at this stuff, which actually is more akin to any radical social movement that's about equality. Basically, those are ideally where we would be making more connections and more inroads.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, I have my thing of so the Quakers punch above their weight in terms of social change. Not many Quakers, but they punch above their weight, in peace movements and things. So my cunning plan is to get Quakers on board with neurodiversity advocacy, which sounds like, no, that won't go anywhere. But actually, as I say, there's a punching above their weight. And I am preempting the fact that the direction of travel is currently into shallower knowledge, some of which is challenged.
Yeah. And I think often when I see people inviting the autistic community in, especially when you're not inviting consultancy, you're just inviting opinion. And then you go, well, we asked, but you're not thinking about who you're asking, and oh, yeah. Anyway, we're going to finish with sort of the end of the script for Zed script, and we're gonna hope that you had a lovely Christmas. So I come from a future where everything is neurodivergent friendly. There are more sensory rooms, more resources. I come from a future where no one is required to fit in to get their basic rights met. I come from a future where no one has any basic unmet need. And with that, Merry Christmas to you all.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks for tuning in to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws. We're so glad you joined us today to explore the fascinating world of neurodivergence with your hosts, me, Nic King.
And me, Kate Fox. If our conversation sparked a thought, a question, or even a smile, don't keep it to yourself. Drop us a line at hello@neurotypicalsdon'tjugglechainsaws.co.uk or visit our website, neurotypicalsdon'tjugglechainsaws.co.uk, to write in. We'd love to hear from you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, consider leaving us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast platform.
Until next time, keep embracing the unique ways you juggle the chainsaws of life.